Apple didn't invent the passport-style foldable phone. Google, Microsoft, and Oppo all played with wider foldable shapes long before Apple ever showed up to the party. But here's the difference. Apple doesn't have to be first to win. The format. Apple just has to standardize it. And if the latest leaks are even close to accurate, the upcoming iPhone Fold could do exactly that, pushing the entire industry toward a wider, shorter, more tablet-like foldable design that finally makes sense for media, multitasking, and everyday use. Today, we're breaking down what the iPhone Fold is rumored to be, why the 4:3 style widescreen ratio matters, why Android brands are suddenly rushing wide foldables to market, and the one area where Apple may fall behind immediately: battery life. Let's get into it. For years, book-style foldables followed a familiar blueprint: tall, narrow displays when opened, especially the Galaxy Z Fold series. That design worked, but it always came with compromises. Videos often looked awkward, apps didn't always scale nicely, and the whole experience could feel like you were using a stretched phone screen instead of a compact tablet. That's why the rumored iPhone Fold display ratio is such a big deal. Leaks point to Apple shifting away from the tall and skinny foldable, looking toward a wider, shorter internal display, often described as a 4.3 aspect ratio. That's basically the shape people already associate with comfortable tablet usage. It's the same general direction as an iPad mini-style experience, just foldable and pocketable. And when Apple chooses a form factor, the market doesn't consider it. The market follows it. Now look at what's happening across the Android world. Wide foldables are suddenly everywhere. That's not a coincidence. The moment Apple's foldable plan started feeling real, the industry's design roadmap changed. We're seeing brands that haven't touched a new foldable shape in years, suddenly unveiling wider designs, wider prototypes, and wider leaked CAD renders. Huawei has already jumped in with a new wide foldable direction, with devices like the Pura X Max being positioned to compete in the same category of wider foldable, better for video, better for productivity. Samsung, after multiple generations of largely similar design language, appears ready to pivot too, with rumors pointing toward a Galaxy Z Fold 8 wide. And even if the screen size numbers sound only slightly different on paper, the physical proportions are what matter. A fraction of an inch doesn't change your experience nearly as much as a new aspect ratio does, and it doesn't stop there. The Google Pixel line is also expected to move wider, and other players like Motorola and Honor are reportedly preparing their own takes on the widescreen foldable idea. So why are buyers and brands leaning into wide foldables right now? Because wide foldables solve the biggest annoyance with foldables: wasted display space. When you watch a movie or YouTube video on a tall foldable, you often get heavy letterboxing, those thick black bars, because most video is produced in widescreen formats like 16:9. A wider foldable display uses more of the actual panel for video playback, so content looks larger, cleaner, and more native to the screen. That one change alone makes the category feel more mature. But the bigger advantage is productivity. A wider internal display makes split-screen multitasking dramatically more usable. Two apps side by side feel less cramped. Reading documents feels more natural. Email, spreadsheets, browsing, editing, everything benefits when the device behaves more like a mini tablet instead of a tall phone that happens to fold. This is where the iPhone Fold could become the default template for the next era of foldables. Not because Apple invented the shape, but because Apple can make the shape mainstream. And mainstream matters because foldables aren't a niche experiment anymore. Foldable shipments have been growing year over year, and the category is now big enough that one major Apple launch can accelerate adoption across the entire market. Once average consumers start seeing foldables as normal, especially iPhone users, the whole space expands. That's good news for everyone. But it also creates a short, intense window for Android brands to compete. Because when Apple enters a new category, brands don't just compete on design. They compete on credibility, ecosystem comfort, and long-term support. Android manufacturers know that. So if they want to win buyers before Apple locks in the standard, they need a clear advantage that shows up immediately in real-world tests. And there's one battlefield where Android brands are positioned to hit Apple the hardest: Battery foldables are battery hungry by nature. Think about it. A foldable isn't just a phone with a bigger screen. It's a device that powers a large internal display, a cover display, additional sensors and hinge mechanisms, and often more complex cooling needs, while still being slim enough to fit into your pocket. That's a tough engineering equation, and now imagine the rumored iPhone Fold internal display size, often discussed around the high 7-inch range, paired with Apple's typical focus on thinness and premium materials. Big screen plus thin body equals one big question. Where does the battery go? This is where several Android rivals may pull ahead quickly because many of them are adopting silicon-carbon battery technology. If you haven't heard of silicon-carbon batteries yet, here's the simple explanation. They can pack more energy into the same physical space compared to traditional lithium-ion batteries that rely heavily on graphite anodes. In practical terms, silicon-carbon can deliver noticeably higher energy density, often discussed around up to roughly 20% improvement, without making the phone thicker, and that matters more for foldables than for any other phone category. Some phones already using silicon-carbon batteries have shown standout real-world endurance, including heavy-use screen-on-time results that can outpace conventional lithium-ion devices by several hours. That's not a small difference. That's the kind of difference people feel on day one. And if wide foldables become the new normal, bigger displays, more video watching, more multitasking, battery life becomes the feature that decides whether foldables are cool or practical. So, here's the problem Apple may face. Apple is famously cautious with new technologies, especially anything that could introduce long-term reliability issues. Silicon-carbon batteries have historically raised concerns about swelling, stability, and lifespan because silicon expands and contracts during charging cycles. Manufacturers have been improving this with advanced coatings and structural solutions designed to manage that expansion more safely. But Apple doesn't like risk in a first-generation product. If Apple launches its first foldable iPhone, it's already taking a major durability risk in public perception. Hinges, creases, drops, dust resistance, long-term wear. Apple may not want to pair that with a brand new battery chemistry in the same first release. And if Apple sticks with a more traditional battery approach while rivals go silicon-carbon, Android brands could dominate the battery conversation immediately. That's why you should expect an aggressive wave of battery comparisons the moment these devices are out in the wild. Not just spec sheet talk, real endurance tests, side by side, video loops, heavy mixed usage, brightness stress tests, gaming drain, standby drain. Charging cycles. And if devices like the Huawei Pura X Max, Honor Magic V6, or other silicon-carbon equipped foldables consistently last longer than the iPhone Fold, or even Samsung's wide foldable, that advantage becomes a marketing weapon. Because battery life is universal. Not everyone cares about hinge tolerances. Not everyone cares about camera processing. Not everyone cares about AI features. Everyone cares when their phone dies early.